Hey everyone, Wesley Smith here, Tree Service Digital and Tree Service Marketing Profits Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. We got another awesome episode. I think you're going to get a ton of value at it. We got a seasoned expert in the tree service space on with us today. So if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel. We got plenty more expert interviews coming up that I think you'll get a lot of value out of, as well as webinars and topics on tree service marketing to really grow your business and position yourself as the expert branded tree company in your local market. But today we got a returning guest who we're super pumped to have on, Andy Felix, the founder and past president of Tree Tech Inc. up in Massachusetts. Andy, thanks so much for joining us again today, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Wes. So, glad to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I know you got plenty of stuff to share that I think is going to provide a ton of value. A lot of people that follow and watch the podcast and listen to it and things like that, either on the audio or watch the YouTube version. A big thing I think these days and a big trend is, like we were talking about before the recording started, is kind of selling out to private equity, the mom and pop companies across the country, and maybe just an exit strategy. You know, if you've been in it for decades and you've grown a successful company, and that's something that you're very aware of, and actually now you know the whole process because you've been through it yourself. So it's awesome to have you on.
Thanks. I do have some pretty good information and firsthand, well, I'll say firsthand information on the subject. It's been going on for 3 years now. Actually, probably even longer, but there's so many inquiries coming into to me via email, by phone, by mail. I mean, just having interest in buying our company. So it was, I didn't know if that was something that was going on for everybody or if it was specific to us. It just wasn't the kind of thing I could go around and find out about.
Yeah, that's true. So one of the things I guess first is you kind of have in the back of your mind after so many years or decades, probably, you've been thinking about it a little bit. Maybe I want to sell it, or, anybody watching, maybe you want to sell it, or maybe you want to possibly pass it down, have a succession plan or something like that. But in Andy's case, I think, selling it made the most sense, I guess, for you. And so you kind of started going down that path, maybe.
Yeah. So it was at first, I have my kids who, and one stepson who work here at the company. And like 3 years ago, we looked into selling the company to them. And for a variety of reasons, and we were working with a third party, which is something I recommend for any of these transactions.
Kind of like a mediator type person that has experience.
Yeah, an advisor, someone who's, looking at it objectively and not, personally. And anyway, my kids are great workers. They're good kids, but it just was probably a little bit too much to put on them to continue on. And I didn't want to put my retirement on and that pressure on them. So we took that off the table.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, from there, because we have such a great staff and, long tenured employees, and I did look at the ESOP option too, which is the employee stock ownership plan, which a number of companies have gone to. And for us, again, working with a third party advisor, it didn't appear to be the best strategy for us. That's all.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go with that.
There are.
So you kind of just pivot to which one makes the most sense for your personal situation, family situation, and all of that, like you mentioned. So that's kind of what went into your thought process, I assume. So
yeah, it did. And, I'm still a little conflicted through the whole thing, but I find, like, as we spoke earlier about, excuse me, the going to the next level, like those guys down in Tri-State, if I can mention a name, where, now they're in the acquisition phase of their company. and to create opportunity, to continue to create opportunities here, that would probably have been the route I would have had to have taken, and I didn't feel good about that.
Yeah. Whole other
Based
set of
on
yeah,
everything.
whole other set of things to do and learn probably with that regard, and you
Yeah,
already built an extremely successful tree service company in your market. So it's kind of like, what makes the most sense for everybody is going to probably differ a little bit, right? So
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And so now, under our current situation, I believe that the people that have been here and helped this business grow have more opportunities for growth. And through management, all different um, positions will become available, as the company grows. So they actually we sold the company to a private equity firm,
Mm-hmm.
and we were their first acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're their flagship
Okay.
company. And then they went on to start another company called Tree Care Partners, and since they've acquired us, they've bought three other tree companies in the area.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's almost like they got
Yeah.
a baseline and kind of figured out kind of the moving parts to getting it done and evaluation and
Yep.
doing the whole thing. And now they're kind of it sounds like they're moving kind of quick now.
Yeah, they looked at this space. They thought it was kind of untapped,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and watching Save a Tree move along
Yeah.
on a number of companies, I think they thought they could compete there some and offer a little more. But I'm not here to sell that or to sell what I've done. I'm
Sure.
just really here with you to help, companies look towards that goal, because eventually you got to make a move if you have a successful company,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because otherwise, as you maybe continue to get older, or maybe you're less interested in putting in the amount of hours that you have in the past, you don't want the revenue to start decreasing and declining, therefore maybe decreasing the value of your company, right? So it's like you got to make
Exactly.
that decision at some point. So that kind of sets the stage for kind of like how it all kind of started. So this company was kind of on the list of a company that possibly wanted to acquire Tree Tech, and you started having the conversations with them. Take us through kind of what they kind of started looking at, what the meetings were like. Did they schedule meetings in the office and wanted to kind of go through some financials probably and talk to the personnel and all that
Oh
kind of
yeah,
stuff?
the whole gambit. I mean,
Yeah.
which is called due diligence, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's all confidential, and you know, it's formal. It's a
Mm-hmm.
formal process. You have a notice of intent, and you have all this technical details have to be in place. But um, really the biggest part of this, and which is probably the weakest part for a lot of tree companies, is the financials.
Yeah.
And that financial part, me personally, would never really interest me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an arborist. I like to do tree work. I like to meet with people. That's my thing. The financial aspect, as long as we're profitable and paying bills, uh, it was okay. But when it gets down to this point, the importance of these details is huge. And if there's companies out there that really aren't managing their financials properly and filing taxes on time, and all the fundamental business um, requirements, it's going to take value away from your company.
Right. So keep
Um,
accurate books and keep detailed books and probably just make sure, because some of these street companies that watch this or maybe are viewing this right now, or on a later date when they see it later, they might be doing $1 million or $3 million or $5 million a year in annual revenue, which is good. They're on their way. They're doing great, growing the
definitely.
company. And then, but you've got to plug in somebody like maybe just an experienced, bookkeeper and accountant that you go through these things and just get everything accurate, because that's the roadmap that this buyout, they're gonna look at all that, right? And that's how they evaluate what they're going to pay for the company.
They want, even just the basic things like reconciling your checking account. I mean, that, I'll be honest, we weren't up to date with it. It got ahead of us, and it was a little humbling, some of this stuff.
Sure.
But fortunately for us, we had so many other strengths that we were able to overcome some of those deficiencies. But all of this, and looking to the future for companies, it's going to make you a better business if you really do have a focus towards the end of your career. Because if you really are thinking about the maximum value of your company, then you're going to do things right. Like, not to promote accreditation at TCIA, but I think having gone through that process really raised the bar for our company, and I think it does for all the companies that go through it, and that gets you everything in place. If you weren't aware of it before, now you are, and those are important factors in increasing your company's value.
Yeah, and just the professionalism and the benchmark that you strive for as a company, and the reviews and testimonials you get, your rating, your reputation. I think a lot of that goes just back to the basics. And if you get bad, and if you got bad ratings and bad reputation, wouldn't that kind of sour the relationship of somebody trying to buy the company? They might not even want to go down that path if they got a bunch of bad reviews online already or something anyway.
You wouldn't get a call,
right,
if that was the case. Another big thing there is to be recognizable, if not personally, then as a company. Like, being a member of a trade association, I think, is really helpful. And it just goes a long way in increasing your professionalism anyway. But that if you're a member there, then you're, people from the outside at least have a chance to find you, and because most people in the trade associations tend to be more professional and more successful.
Yeah, and their perception is that you're on the up and up, and you're learning the newest and latest and greatest things in arboriculture and tree service and tree care if you're plugged into those associations like the TCA or ISA, and that kind of goes with your marketing and branding too, because it says a lot about who you are as a company, I think, too.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking, we work, I think, if one other thing I'd like to point out is like utilizing third parties in general, like yourself as a marketing company. Like, I always thought I was pretty good at marketing, myself, and I didn't do bad. But boy, once I, learned and heard from people like yourself, they really can make the phone ring, and when I work with someone professional like you guys, I'd be worried about keeping up with the amount of business that could be generated. So looking back, I wish I had, done that more so than trying to do it myself.
Get everything kind of locked in and dialed in properly, so everything kind of works off of each other online. A lot of it does.
Yeah, it really does. And how much can you do? Like the saying, you shouldn't be working, in your business, you should be working on it.
Right.
And that was a mistake I made forever.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. It's because you're not going to know every little moving part to the marketing or the operations or the personnel or the HR, or what I mean? It's just tough to be good at all of those things. Where they say the jack of all trades is the master of none.
Exactly.
And you try to do that right in your company, but it's impossible once you get to a certain size anyway. So
that's true. And you know what? If you can't do it internally, then it pays to find the right people to work with, and all of it, from even if you don't have your own mechanic to having a good, reliable mechanic, there and be loyal to, all those things really make such a difference.
Oh yeah, time is money. I mean, if the trucks are sitting there broke down, that's not going to make you any money.
Oh, and even like payroll, I don't know how many people do their own payroll, but I think that's crazy to do your own payroll.
Well, there's so many changes going on too, week to week with personnel and everything, right?
Oh my God. And
yeah.
then, all the regulations and so forth. I mean, it's just peanuts really to have a payroll company.
And then the peace of mind too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the liability is on them if they just screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So some good nuggets so far. I mean, I think some of the key points, is keep good books, keep accurate books, make sure you stay on top of your financials and don't just try to wing it, because an outsider looking in, if they're going to do this due diligence process, that's really all they have to go by to know what they're about to buy, right? It's kind of the numbers that the company generates. Yeah, of course, your business is a well-known entity. It's branded. Everybody loves it. Great.
Well, the branding thing is big.
Yes.
I just wanted to emphasize that too. I mean, we do, we did a lot of things well. That was one of them, is having a brand. And I think to, having your equipment all be this, the same color or whatever, your uniforms on your people. And I mean, that adds value, a lot of value to a potential buyer.
Yeah. I mean, that's commonly overlooked.
Yeah.
I see that a lot. Yeah.
And then another funny thing was like with equipment, like a lot of guys, like our approach wasn't always the best, but we had some pretty good mechanics here and fabricators. So we tended not to replace equipment, and but always had it, if it looked good at 15 miles an hour going down the road, then that was acceptable to us. Like that was that was the threshold. But if you like have a list of equipment that you're giving a potential buyer, and it's 15 years old, to you it might look like it's fine, and it is, but to a buyer that's an old piece of equipment and it doesn't really have the value that you think it would have as a seller.
Yeah,
so it's an interesting thing.
Fixer upper, they might look at it as something that they've got to fix and replace.
It's like a liability, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. And because I talked to a guy that we were working with in the Ohio market, and they had several investors pull their money together to start this tree service company, and it grew from zero to I think around $3 million in revenue in like 3 years. And they just did a ton of marketing, direct mail and digital and everything. And that's what he had told me. He's like, it just doesn't make sense for us to have, since we're kind of ramping up and just constantly adding new crews and everything. It doesn't make sense for us to have old equipment. It's just best for us to buy new and then just pay the payments on it, because they're super profitable. They were pricing their services correctly, and having enough estimates and appointments to go on to get their fair share of work anyway. So they're like, we have enough income to support it. So we don't want the breakdowns and the hassles, I think, of the used equipment.
It's really the right approach. I mean, I think if you were to do an analysis from what I've been told by others in the industry, that, buying new versus, used in the long run is less expensive.
Yeah. And a lot of people have that debt thought, I don't want, but at the same time, the headaches that it minimizes by having the newer equipment. It's just a fine line. A lot of people have this, and I don't think there's any right or wrong with that, with your personal thoughts and beliefs on debt.
Right.
I think you're right. I mean, I think the newer equipment is going to keep you moving faster, and than the older stuff, there might be a few more headaches, but
you might even eliminate the need for a mechanic, or two. Everything's under warranty. You depreciation, you fully depreciate it, and then.
Yeah, if it's over a certain weight, you can appreciate the whole thing the first year or something like that, right?
So, exactly. Yeah. There's those items too.
Yeah.
Which if you're making money, it helps a lot.
Absolutely.
So that approach is a good one if you can get your arms around it. It's just like you said, the debt is a little overwhelming. You just got to keep it in line.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And it's just kind of, everybody's got a different personal belief with that, so it's like, it's no right or wrong way, I don't guess, but it's just kind of what your comfort level is. And, if you've got a sustainable, consistent business, then I think it probably makes the most sense to do it that way, to get the newer
Yeah.
stuff. And,
Yep.
but
It
yeah, so,
does.
so you bring
And
in,
then also you
Mhm.
keep in compliance with, DOT stuff too.
Mhm.
You're not running, an older piece of equipment down the road, you get pulled over, and all of a sudden, you're finding there's a leaf spring broken or whatever, and you're getting walloped with, fines and so forth. So
Another point, those are those hidden things that you don't foresee coming, right?
yeah, right. And the
Yeah.
drive, and for the guys in the field, the people in the field, they'd rather drive and use nicer, newer equipment than unreliable. Don't know if you're going to make it to the job or not.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, because you got appointments set, right? You don't want to miss them.
No, so it's there's a lot of interesting comparisons and reasons to do things.
Right. So it makes it a little bit more valuable to have the newer equipment. That's a good point. So that's
Yeah,
one of the things maybe to think about as you're growing your company, whether to buy
yep.
like older used stuff just to save some money, or and the perception is you might be saving some money up front, but over the long haul, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you might not really be saving any money because you're repairing it more often, having to hire mechanics more often. So there's that too.
So we've done both here,
Yeah.
and I tell you, I wouldn't sell a piece of some of the equipment that we really ran into the ground. I just
Yeah.
would feel terrible to sell some of that stuff to
Yeah.
anybody because I know what it's been through.
Mm-hmm.
And a coat of paint and things are you would never know.
Yeah.
You would never know what some things have been through.
So they're
And
buying all of that, right? They're buying the business, the brand, the financials, the equipment. Like the buyer's buying all of that stuff. So, all of these things are important to kind of discuss, I think, because people going down that road. So the guys come in and you guys start meeting, you go through the financials. What's kind of the thought process with like the employees and the staff when all this is taking place? Like, is there a comfort level there that the buyer kind of gives them, or do you give them, or how did that go?
well, it was recommended to me, not, and I don't really like this, but that it's you don't discuss it with
Okay.
people. They really shouldn't. It's not good to share the
Well, because it may
information.
not happen, right? So,
May not happen.
yeah.
This that puts a whole level of uncertainty
Hmm.
into your company. Then the rumors, start, and then there's, it's just it could be very damaging if it's not handled right.
Yeah.
And but believe me, it was super important to make this right, and that's why I'm still sitting here now, is because I want to make sure that everybody is good, and everything that we said would happen or not happen is accurate. We put together $1 million retention plan, as part of the deal between the buyer and myself.
Hmm.
So after 5 years, a group of individuals will share in $500,000, and then the following year, the same will happen if they stay on.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
That
I
is,
think,
that's a good incentive to keep the staff and the team, together.
yeah, yeah, and that came, that was a third party,
Hmm.
you know, giving me their expertise and wisdom, and I think it was really I wanted to do something.
Hmm.
I didn't even think of that, and now we have it.
That's a
So
great, that's a great share. Yeah. Think about that. That would give everybody the incentive to do the right thing, to keep the team together, keep the staff on board, keep everybody kind of thinking positively too, right? About the whole
right,
thing.
because
Uh,
the buyer wants, if you have a good staff, strong staff, and team and culture, if they're smart, they're going to want to preserve that. I mean, that's got so much value in itself.
Absolutely. That's who's touching
Uh,
the clients every day.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. And the client thing is important too. Like, we did a very good job of being diversified uh,
Hmm.
on our client base. And so that was an attractive thing to a buyer as well. because, we had a good split with commercial and residential. And, we do some utility work, which has been good for us. Not everybody does that, the utility part. I never thought we would, but it really worked out well. And we have guys who like doing the work. We have guys who can manage it. And the utility we work for really likes us. So it's very good and consistent recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big thing. And that's where, the planned healthcare really does increases value, or whatever you can do to be on a property more than once every 3 to 5 years to prune big trees or whatever. If you could see your clients, 1 to 6 times for different treatments or a consultation or whatever, that's valuable.
That holds a lot of value, because they know that's predictable revenue coming in again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They like contracts, but we only have the one contract, believe it or not. It's just that utility piece. Everything else for us is relationship based. And so we might have a few blanket purchase orders for some, properties. But most everything else is informal, which is not necessarily good, but we roll with it pretty well here. So
you bring up a good point. I'm glad you brought that up about customers too. So would you say keeping a good database and records of all of your customers and the dates and jobs and notes and work that you've done for each client, that's pretty important, right? For them to be able to take a look at.
Huge. Because from a goodwill standpoint, and to have that history of what's been done and so forth really is, it verifies what's going on and what has gone on and what's real.
Yeah. And I imagine too, they might select a couple of them and go, okay, we want to take care of this one. This one's $1 million a year contract. We want to take care of this one. So it gives them an opportunity to make sure they don't lose some of those big ones either,
For sure. And they asked, I think I gave them 10 different people to call so they could just inquire about us and our level of professionalism and service. And, and obviously we could prep people to do that, but that's not how we roll. We're just,
sure.
If we have to do something like that, then that's
if somebody calls you, make sure you pour it on real thick. Okay.
I'll get you. I got a good, gift certificate for you.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a good point. And the relationships over the years speak for themselves, and then they're happy to do that type of thing for you without even asking. Right. So
as a matter of fact, I haven't really made a public announcement about this to our clientele, but those I do, when I do meet with people, I do try, when I'm transitioning to another salesman, some of my accounts, people are very happy for me. They're not, it's not a negative or anything like that. They may be happy to see me go. I don't know, but
it's probably the other. It's probably the opposite.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's, but then again, that's another thing. Like I was working in my business because that's what I like to do, and so that now it makes transitioning that much harder. But I'm not saying don't stop selling if you're the owner or whatever. It's just whatever you're comfortable with. But it is true to be working on your business rather than in it. Makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. So. Another thing you said too was just diversifying the types of clients you have. And I think that a lot of people, if they focus too much on residential or too much on utility or too much on commercial or too much on one segment, it kind of puts all your eggs in one basket and keeping you a little bit more at risk for something to turn the other way. So I think that's a great point, is just do a little bit of everything. And probably, Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like as you grow and you get more resources, more crews, more good top-notch equipment, you probably it's easier to land some of those bigger contracts because now you've got the experience, you got the folks, you got the equipment, you can be reliable for those bigger types of stuff and repeat stuff. And you just don't get
Totally.
that when you first start, right?
So true, really. And you know, and then there's a safety aspect of things. I mean, you know, contractors or municipalities or whatever, they'll look into your workers' comp rating, your
Mm-hmm.
mod, you know, the mod they call it, the modification, and if you that's an indicator of how safe a company you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a factor in getting those contracts too. They
Yeah.
don't want to see companies that, you know, have accidents on their properties.
Yeah.
You know, things do happen, but if you take safety seriously, I think that's another big value um, increaser,
Oh yeah,
right?
no, it's marketing and branding too. That's part of your angle, probably, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, the safety
yeah.
thing though is
Mm-hmm.
really important. I think for all of us in this industry, no matter what,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
that's the priority.
for sure.
And you know, they looked at our workers' comp rating, and then we had a couple of incidents. They wanted to know the details about it, and you know, just being honest,
Yeah.
honesty rules in all of this. You know,
Yeah.
you can't bullshit things. And what we've seen, you know, just from what I've heard, uh, in looking at some of these companies out there that, you know, are looking to sell, they have some skeletons in their closet,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an that's an eliminator. That's not even a value decreaser. That's a
Yeah.
because if you have if you're paying cash to people, if you have undocumented employees, if you know whatever those things are, those little things that you might think are saving money,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or you're avoiding different, you know, workers' comp or payroll tax, any of that stuff. I mean, you can't have accurate financials if you're
Yeah.
doing that,
Yeah.
you know. So and then it just skews everything.
Yeah.
And
I imagine too, the buyer thinks to themselves, okay, we're this big parent company, hedge fund, private equity, whatever we're called. And we're not going to go buy a business that's going to get us in hot water or the potential to be in hot water. So we're not even going to go down that road. So you're right. They probably don't get a second look after that. Right.
they don't. I
Yeah.
mean, because they just can't
They can't
trust.
risk that.
They can't
Yeah.
trust a lot at that point. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you could be a great guy, a good
Yeah.
arborist, a good person, and you know you're doing that stuff that is not legit in a way, it's still can't overcome it.
No. And like you said, just honesty is the best policy with it because as they dig, they're going to uncover some other things that might tie back into that one thing that you're trying to hide or whatever. They're going to eventually find it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you know, I thought that was worth mentioning today too, is if that's how you're rolling,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just look down the road, you know, to know that if this is, you know, everybody's got to consider this at some
Mm-hmm.
point.
Sure.
Uh, and I've seen other companies, you know, just dissolve and not keep going because the owner just got fed up. The owner died
Right.
unexpectedly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a shit show.
Nobody knows how to do everything but the one person. And so, yeah.
They really, yeah, they want a company that can run on its own without
Mm-hmm.
the owner too. That's another thing, but that's not essential as other things are.
Well, that's a good segue into the next piece. And those are all very, very valuable tips. If you're watching this, guys, leave a comment if you got a question for Andy or myself or anything like that. Leave a comment on the YouTube video or podcast. But it kind of transitions into the next thing is so when you're talking to these buyers, is there some sort of conversation about how long you, the owner, is going to stay involved or stay plugged in or stay doing X, Y, and Z for how many years and that type of thing? How did that go?
Yeah, that's a great point to talk about. Like so, you know, being involved in the associations and you know knowing of other transactions that have happened. You know, I don't really probe into the personal stuff of a lot of those deals. If they want to share things, that's great. If not, so I don't know if there's a standard there that you could go by. But I have heard that some have deals have earnouts,
Right.
where and I always said to myself when I got to this point that there's no way I want that earnout thing. That's pressure, man.
Yeah. You got to stay plugged in for a good bit longer to get that, all that, right? Yeah.
I mean, to make if you want X, then you got to do X plus, in sales and profitability. So there is those deals out there. For me, it was up to me. I chose to stick around, and like I said earlier, to make sure that things are being managed and handled the way we thought that they would. And so far, so good. And as a matter of fact, in the last few weeks, I haven't even been coming in to work.
Yeah.
I'm still working, but I'm working from home, and I'm transitioning.
Sure. Next chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I've heard of deals where they need, and it's not like an earn-out situation. It's just that they want you there for 2 years, for 1 year. But so I'm still on the payroll here as a consultant. And I'm still transitioning my clients over to the appropriate salesperson for that area. And so there's a process for sure.
So what you're talking about with the earnout thing, just so I'm clear on it, and everybody may be watching too, like you can get X up front, stay for 2 years, let's call it, for example. And if we hit this revenue benchmark or profitability benchmark, there's another X pile coming later for you. Or you can there's a couple options they probably give you, or we'll just give you this lump sum up front, or however that works, I guess, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So there'll be holdbacks, is another thing that goes with it. And I might not be getting this terminology right, so don't, go by me on this, but so, those are different deal structures, just as you mentioned, Wes. I mean, you have a good handle on it. But that's an earnout, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Like our guys said to us, if we exceeded our sales from 2021, they were going to pay us 50 cents on a dollar for every dollar of revenue we went over from the year before. But guess what? We didn't make it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, things have really slowed down for us.
There's just all kinds of things going on. I mean, you just never know, right? That's not really predictable, probably. So,
and you know what? It wasn't essential at all. It was an offer, to incentivize us to, not take our foot off the gas.
Right.
And we really didn't take our foot off the gas. It's just that things changed business-wise. I'm sure you probably are well aware of how things are. And it was just a coincidence. But timing is important on things too. And if you're you're having an off year or whatever, it's not the best time to sell a company.
Yeah.
Right? You want to sell a company when it's had, a good few years that are, legitimate, profitable, documentable years.
A good ascending trend, right? Like you going up every single year type thing.
Yeah. And, I was bummed out that the numbers, flattened out here because I didn't want them to feel like they didn't get the value that they thought.
Right.
But, in looking deeper into the industry, the industry from Google Analytics, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if you go into this part of it, but the industry in itself is down 10%.
In some areas, we see it like that. In some areas, it's still kind of kind of humming along pretty
It's
well.
booming.
And a
Yeah.
lot of it depends on, like we're going back to kind of the beginning part of the meeting, is your branding and your brand in the area. If you have that strong brand, it's
Yep.
not affecting those companies quite as much as some of the startups or some of the newer people that perhaps don't have the name in the area. But you're
Yeah.
correct. I mean, there is some decrease in search volume and things like that in certain areas and stuff like that. So we've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Sure.
expect that. I don't think they did either.
Yeah.
But and I mean, we still have work. Don't get me wrong. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that it wasn't the 6 to 8 week backlog that we had for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and then you staying on it too, I think is probably important, even if you're not coming in every day, but you're still kind of a part of the business. And even though you're a consultant and maybe not doing the same roles you had before, it probably goes a long way with the staff and the people and the whole team of people a part of Tree Tech, because they look up to you. You're the founder, you started the company. You've helped everybody in some capacity along the way. So they probably do enjoy still seeing you around. And so that probably goes a
Well,
long way too for the company morale, I would think.
yeah, I mean, I could see it going either, one way or the other. I think you're right.
Yeah.
For me, I feel good about that.
Mm-hmm.
That it seems like, people like having me around. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people miss having me around as frequently as I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're like a family here,
Yeah.
and that's where it's a little weird, but I know that I did the right thing um, for everybody involved, and I still have some questions, but
Yeah.
I got to get over it.
Well, it
And
sounds like it was a win-win-win all the way around. And I mean, of course, there's always going to probably be a little bit of hesitation or a little bit of reluctance or a little bit of maybe I should have did this or should have did that. I mean, that's the case with everything in life almost, where you're faced
true,
with a decision,
Wes.
right?
Thank you for
And
saying that.
and that's a big decision too, to
Yeah,
sell your company or whatnot. That's something that you've been working on for decades, and it's not probably not something anybody takes lightly when you get to that point. So
yeah, it's true. You're right.
yeah.
And I think that it's important that people, company owners, really take this seriously and have a goal. Like, what, we never had goals here.
Yeah.
I can't believe, like, for all that I've learned and so forth all the years, still never set a friggin' goal.
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways. And despite that, we did pretty damn good. But had we had some firm goals and objectives, I think it would have been that much better. So I think if you're not goal setting or milestones or whatever, you should take another look at that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you don't really know where you're going unless you kind of have a map and a target to get there. And
Yeah,
with you guys, even without a goal, I mean, if you're growing, you probably the thought process is too, where we're growing steady year over year for decades. It's kind of like, well, we're kind of getting there anyway. So, you know,
that's exactly how it went. I
yeah,
mean, it was always pretty very positive and so forth, but it was kind of despite not had the goals. Anyway,
mhm.
but this one has so much value to it if you really are focusing on the succession.
Yeah.
Because if you want to get the most value, you got to get your shit together.
Yeah, no, 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 and that's why I wanted to go through this with you
Yeah,
and kind of get your tidbits on it and your point of view, because you've just been through it, right? You
yeah,
just recently went through it, and a lot of people are probably thinking about that. And so we went through a lot of really, really good points, and I definitely want to be respectful of your time too, and not take you up too much
yeah,
time.
man. No,
But
it's good. I think we hit a lot of good stuff.
yeah, and I mean, is there any other like just maybe things that just pop up in your head to maybe look out for as you're going through this process, or some of the things to think about?
Well, I could tell you that when I that because there was so much activity um, and interest in this company that I wound up hiring a broker,
Mm-hmm.
and And I really think that was one of the smartest things I've done, because we got 11 offers for the company, and those were qualified offers because the broker made sure that whoever was eligible to make an offer had the wherewithal to pay.
Right.
Right. I mean, so that was on them,
Yeah.
to
No
make
tire
sure.
kickers wasting time and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they did that due diligence. And granted, I paid for that,
Mm-hmm.
but they kept the emotion at a minimum, and really kind of paved the way. They negotiated my lease, for me on the building,
Oh, cool.
which, what
Yeah.
the hell do I know about that?
Yeah.
I just
Right.
did, maybe some people are way more knowledgeable than I am, so they probably could have done it themselves. But I know that it, I've done way better
Mm-hmm.
on on everything, because of someone else's knowledge and expertise. So that's what
That's a good point. No, I
I'll
mean,
leave
because
it.
those people do that every day probably. So they kind of know all the pitfalls and shortcommings and things to look for, right? Before it
Yeah.
happens.
They
Yeah.
put us out to the marketplace without, with confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, some people knew exactly who it was,
Right.
but that's kind of unavoidable.
They put two and two together. Like, wow, we know
Yeah.
what company this is. This is the bigger companies around anyway.
Yep. And they called to see,
Well, good
but
points. Great shares. That's
yeah,
everything's good. I mean, it's a matter of getting your books together. Kind of we touched on in the beginning, getting the books together, getting the financials accurate in place. Because at some point, if you want to sell, that's going to be a big elephant in the room that's got to be
yeah,
addressed, right?
no
Um,
doubt. And
yeah.
a lot of people don't really want to
No.
pay attention to it, because you're working so hard in the field, and
Yeah.
you got so many other balls to juggle.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that can get dropped, and it doesn't cost money. It pays
Yes,
to
that is the
have
best way
that.
to put it. It's more of a, yes, you pay a itty bit more now, but it's peanuts compared to your overall company revenue. And later down the road, you're not going to have to untangle a bird nest. It's all kind of right there.
So true.
Yeah. So it's
Good
that
stuff.
part. And then it's the branding and the marketing and getting everything right where you're kind of, synced up across the board with the truck wraps, the digital, everything looks the same, looks good, the reputation in the area, just all of those moving parts that we discussed. So I think really appreciate you sharing that stuff, because anybody that's just recently been through it kind of knows what kind of to expect of anybody else that would be about to go through it. So
Yeah.
a lot of
And
people are interested in
one
this.
other
Mm-hmm.
thing I would say is just modernize your company in general. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not online, you don't have a presence, get it. You got to have it, and use the software program
Yes.
that
Yes.
will make you more help make it more professional. Have a good database. All
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is
So many
just,
good tools like ArboStar, Single Ops, Arbor Gold, like all those
yeah,
tools that will help just systematize your business. Again, yeah, you look more professional with digital invoices. You can follow up. I mean, there's just so many things
awesome.
you can do with that thing. Yeah. And then plus the buyer is going to want to see your clients in one place and all that.
Yeah, with
So
their
that's,
history, and
yeah.
if you don't have time to put stuff and do that data entry, hire somebody to do it. It's
Yeah.
money in the
Yeah.
bank.
Yeah. If
You
you're
know,
looking to sell, you've got to put these pieces of the puzzle together. It's going to go faster probably and easier. Plus, you're going to get a higher valuation, right? I mean,
exactly.
yeah. No, those are important.
Last thing I just wanted to mention is too, most deals include no debt, right? So like we had, just to share the numbers, I had like $2.2 million in debt on equipment and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to pay all that off in the deal.
So what they offer you, you then have to use that offer to pay off the debt, and then the net is what the owner would get. Or
Yeah, well, so the owner got everything debt free,
right, I got it. So they basically
right?
say, here's the offer, but this chunk's going to go to pay the debt off.
Well, yeah, however you want to do it, but
Right.
if they take it over, there's zero debt, and I think that's standard. I think that's pretty standard.
That makes sense too, because there could
It
be some
does.
debt in personal names and stuff that don't want to be carried over too. right? Maybe stuff like
Right. That's right. You're
that.
guaranteeing things personally
Yeah.
or whatever. And so, but that goes into your negotiating
Mm-hmm.
price of the business. So, that's something you got to figure.
Yeah, that, I mean, you got to account for every little thing, and then they're gonna let you know about it either way, right? When they're
That's
going
right.
through
They
this stuff.
are.
So it's probably better to know about this stuff up front. Well, this has been awesome, like
Good.
so
I'm
good
glad.
information. Yeah,
I hope it was helpful to others. And that's really what, you know, that's
no, I
why.
appreciate it. It will be because we've got a lot of people that listen to the podcast and watch the videos and stuff, and they'll really appreciate your wisdom and your insights on kind of how you just went through this process. And
Mm,
so I think it's just an important topic because, like you said, it's kind of a consolidation movement, I think, right now with these bigger companies buying the tree companies. And like we
yeah,
were talking about before, it's going through some of the other mechanical trade businesses from before. And the tree
yeah,
service seems to be kind of ramping up in that regard too,
yeah.
with
Yes, yeah. Well, you know what? You're doing a great job too, and I hope that if people are watching, they're watching and considering using your services if they aren't already.
I appreciate that. Thanks so
Yeah,
much,
man.
Andy.
Well, I'm impressed with you guys, so keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And if there's any other tips or, value added things that you want to discuss in the future, man, you're always welcome back. We're always looking for people to share their wisdom with the tree care industry, and you do a great job of that. You've been a part of TCIA for decades too, right? So,
Yep. Oh yeah.
um,
Yep.
we appreciate it.
Right on.
Thanks so much. All right, guys. Well, if
All
you're
right.
watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel. Or if you got a comment or a question, leave a comment on the YouTube video or on the podcast. We'll be coming up with more expert interviews like Andy's today, sharing their valuable wisdom with us on the podcast. And if you hadn't joined our free Facebook group, it's called Tree Service Marketing Secrets. Go take a look at us. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And until next time, we will talk to you then. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Wes.